Anti-Xeno combat in Elite Dangerous can sometimes be seen as an intimidating endgame activity. There's lots of talks about complicated hyper-engineered builds and how hard interceptors are to fight with their mechanics and whatnot. And that places it beyond the reach, or at least presumably beyond the reach of more casual and newcomer players. Well, our intent is here to make this all a lot more accessible to players who don't necessarily have a super engineered ship, but still want to get in on the action and getting, especially in a group, involved in fighting Thargoids. As a buy-side, and this is really meant to inform an event that we have planned for October 11, where we plan to get out in numbers to a California nebula and hunt down Thargoids and anti-Xeno combat zones. So what this video is meant to be, it's meant to be an introductory video for somebody who is completely new to the game, has no engineering whatsoever, and all you have to get started is somewhere between 250 and 300 million credits in the bank. Maybe you took your starter Sidewinder and went and scanned a few plants on a variety of planets, cashed in those exobiology credits, and you're good to go. This video will be divided in a number of sections. We'll start with a brief introduction as to what this is all about. Then we're going to be talking about how to build the ship that we're recommending, which is what we call the Easy Mode Corsair. And then we're going to talk about how to use the Easy Mode Corsair. Like all things in Elite, knowledge is possibly your most effective and important weapon. And this is a video that is meant to give you enough knowledge to get started in a group for the event on October 11 and beyond. So how and where do you get started? Well, first and foremost, we're planning to build what we call an Easy Mode Corsair. What is an Easy Mode Corsair? An Easy Mode Corsair is a Corsair that relies on gimbaled multi-cannons as its effectively primary weapon. Eventually, it'll be upgraded also with Guardian weapons, but you don't necessarily need Guardian weapons to start to make this build. Where do you make this build? You can choose to build it, of course, like piecemeal across the galaxy if you want, but if you're new to the game, the presumption is that you don't have access to Jameson Memorial in Shinrata Desra, which is sort of a hub for building in sort of a late game mode, but you need Elite in at least one of the categories to be able to unlock the permit to Shinrata. So the closest thing the game has to Shinrata Desra for people who don't have that permit is the system Bresla, and in particular the Isola Prospect port in the system Bresla. This port where I am right now has all ships and modules available for purchase. It does come with a 20% price increase compared to everywhere else in the galaxy, so it's pricey. You pay for that convenience. But it does allow you to build pretty much everything without the hassle of having to jump between stations and see if a particular module is stock or not, or a particular ship is available or not. So for the sake of our exercise, we're going to be buying and building our Easy Mode Corsair here at Isola Prospect. If you want to save some money on the build and on the rebuys, because keep in mind that the rebuy price is based on your build price, so that 20% additional cost that we're incurring here will carry over to the price you need to pay every time your ship is destroyed. You may want to sort of like get a little more thrifty, buy a Corsair somewhere else, maybe put mill-grade armor on it, and then come here in Isola Prospect to outfitting. But again, as always, if you have more time, you don't need more credits. If you don't have more time, you may want to spend the credits. So here we are. So where do we start? Well, the first thing is obviously to buy a Corsair. So let us go ahead and buy one. The Corsair itself is around 70 million usually. Here, with the 20% increase, we're going to pay 92 million for it, and that's okay, because like we're using this for the sake of demonstration purposes. And then how do we kit it? Well, we're going to get rid of the sort of default pulsators, of course. And we're actually going to wait to put hard points, because we're going to need to go and get those hard points at a different place. And we'll get to that in a moment. Because like the enhanced, I don't think actually they're available here. No, they are. Never mind. I'll take that back. We can actually buy them here, which is great. So the hard points we're going to be using are these enhanced anti-Xeno multi-cannons. Make sure they are the enhanced version, and make sure that they are the gimbaled version. We don't want the fixed ones. They're also available in fixed variant, but the whole point of this belt to make it easy mode is to have those gimbals. So make sure you buy the gimbal version of these enhanced multi-cannons. We're going to buy 3 big ones, and we're going to buy one of the medium ones for now. Again, make sure you buy the gimbal version. So we have 2 additional hard points, but we can't immediately put additional multi-cannons because these are experimental weapons, and experimental weapons have a limit of 4 by default on any particular ship. So we're going to have to do something first, which is we're going to have to go to our optional internals, sell all the default stuff that we're not going to need, and kit out our optional internals first, and then we're going to come back to our hard points placement. So the first thing we're going to have is we're going to have cargo rack for limpets, because we'll be using repairs, and repairs need repair limpets. So we're going to put in a 64-ton cargo rack, and then get rid also of all things down here. And then go with our standard 3 module reinforcement package build, starting with the 2 smallest slots. So we're going to put a module reinforcement package down here, if we can find it. And if you just care about the build link, by the way, the build link for both the unengineered version and the fully engineered version is in the video description below. And we use these for the percentage of damage protection, not for the integrity. For the integrity and the buffer, we're going to use a class size, which is the one that gets damaged first. So this is the common arrangement for shieldless ships in anti-xeno combat. So we've done our module reinforcement package protection, like going out from the small ones. We're going to put an AFMU for module repairs, class 3A. And then the rest here will be occupied by a class 5D repair limpet controller. We don't need anything higher than D class because the only thing that an A class gives you is more active range, as you can see. And since we're basically going to be repairing only ourselves, we don't need to pay, quote, the additional 12 tons of mass and additional power draw, which is double, just for the sake of repairing ourselves. So we're going with a class D repair limpet control, but make sure you do a class 5. And then this is going to be what allows us to add 2 additional gimbal multi-cannons. This is an experimental weapon stabilizer. They come in 2 sizes, small and large, essentially, class 3 and 5. Class 3 allows you to mount 1 additional experimental weapon. Class 5 allows you to mount 2 additional experimental weapons. So in the unengineered build, we're going to be using this one. We're going to be using the larger one. This is something that in the engineered, in the fully engineered build, we actually drop down to the class 3 because the fully engineered build, as you will see later on, uses only 5 experimental weapons total versus the unengineered build uses 6. So once we've put an experimental weapon stabilizer, we will be able to go back to our hardpoints and mount the additional 2. But for now, let's finish our optional internals while we're here. Like the rest is all going to be hull reinforcement packages. Sorry, not module, hull reinforcement packages. There we go, to give us some additional integrity. Two and 3. And with this, we're done with our optional internals of our unengineered easy mode Corsair. Let's finish with the hard points. Now we will be able to put additional experimentals since we have a stabilizer. We're going to go ahead and put 2 additional enhanced AX multi-cannons. Again, make sure you get the gimbal and not the fixed ones. All right, all are fixed, all of the right size, 3 large and 3 medium ones. We have our weapons kitted and mounted on board. Now let's go to utility mounts. So for utility mounts, this is going to be an anti-xeno combat zone build, so it kind of follows a pretty established recipe if you want. We're going to want a heatsink. We're going to want enhanced xenoscanner. This is very important because you need to get scans of interceptors for your multi-cannons to be able to track Thargoid hearts to be able to sub-target and fast-track Thargoid hard. So this is a very important module for this build. And then we're going to do a shutdown field neutralizer, because in and be careful, not the Thargoid pulse neutralizer, because, well, we don't need it. It's inferior for this purpose. Go with the good old shutdown field neutralizer. And then finally, we'll want a caustic sink launcher, which is actually, I don't think it's available here. This is one of the things that we'll need to go and pick up somewhere else. Like, used to be a broker module. So this is one of the few modules that is actually not available here at our SOA Prospect. So we're going to leave this fourth utility empty, as we'll want a caustic sink launcher to go there. So we have our hard points, we have our utility mounts. Now let's go through our core internals. The first thing, and the most expensive things we're going to do, is replace our lightweight armor with military grade composite. Again, we don't need reactive, we don't need mirrored. Those only give you better resistances, and resistances in anti-external combat are effectively useless. So the only thing these two give you is higher rebuys. We're going to go with military grade that has exactly the same integrity of these two, less the price. And then I'm going to sell the old one, because again, we're not going to use it. This is an expensive module. As you can see, it's pretty much the same price as the ship, and effectively doubles your rebuy all in all, which is why if you're going to save some money before coming to Isola Prospect, this is probably the one module that you'll want to install. And then we're going to go with the essentially best modules that we can kit. We're going to go with an A-rated power plant. We're going to go with A-rated thrusters. We're going to go with A-rated FSD with the SCO, because SCO is amazing. Now, this is a bit of an exception. So let me finish with the others, and we'll come back to sensors and live support. So 7A power distributor. Fuel tank is the default. Live support and sensors. For these, we're going to go not with A-rated, but with D-rated. Because A-rated just gives you sort of benefits that don't matter much in combat. And the weight benefit of D-rated is generally better. Now, the Corsair is a bit special because it is so sort of oversized in terms of thrusters, but you can actually kit sensors of A rating if you want. But it does increase your power draw, and it does limit the configuration of a ship in some cases. So unless you feel you're doing things that require it, which it's not going to be a lot of things, I would recommend almost always going with D-rated. Like, the power draw difference is massive. It's like 3x, over 3x, actually almost 4x. So D-rated sensor it is. And this is it as far as like the actual build of the easy mode Corsair, save for the caustic sink launcher that I kind of wonder where you go and pick it up. I'm actually going to do a quick Inara search since we are talking about it. And see if we can tell you where we pick it up. Caustic sink launcher. I am in Brest a lot. Search. Rescue ship Hutner. And Luton Star. Okay. This would be something that, again, you go and pick up at a rescue ship Hutner and Luton Star. At least according to Inara. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be able to find that on your own time. So this is the basic configuration, but we're only really half done here as far as like setting the ship up, because like there's sort of building the ship, but then there's configuring it for combat. And the first thing you generally want to do, at least that I generally want to do, is you want to set up your power priorities the right way, so that if you have power plant malfunctions or other bad things happen, the shutdown sequence of your modules is the way you want it. What I generally do is I put my core modules like thruster power distributor on 1. I put my weapons on 2, on priority number 2. Then I put my repair limpet controller on priority number 3. My AFMU on priority number 5. And then finally, my cargo hatch and my frameshift drive on priority number 5. This way, if there's a cascade of failures or issues, things shut down in the way I want them. So this is the first thing I generally do. The next thing I do is I set up my fire groups. Now, this is a very easy build as far as fire groups are concerned. all the multi-cannons go on a single trigger, and your enhanced Xeno scanner goes on your second trigger to get the scan. And then for your second fire group, you have repairs, and that's about it. I mean, you can keep the Xeno scanner if you want it on the second trigger here, or maybe add even the other scanners for the sake of convenience if you want to like scan things well in Super Cruise and whatnot. But that's it. Note a few things. I am not mapping heat sinks, and I am not mapping the shutdown field neutralizer. Why is that? The reason why I'm not mapping these is because you should be using heat sinks and shutdown field neutralizers based on hotkeys. Like if you can see like at the sort of top right of the screen, there's like my sort of control, sort of keyboard control thing. I have my pinky finger sort of configured to, it's flashing now, to use heat sinks up here. I map my tilde key sort of like to have easy access to heat sinks while keeping the core of my fingers like on my core controls of being able to control the ship. So like you don't have to use this key, but you should have a heatsink mapped to a handy key, because you don't want to go about messing with fire groups to kind of fire a heatsink in the heat of battle. It is something that you need really handy, be it on a keyboard or a button, or be it on a controller or joystick button, whatever you use. The same is true with the shutdown field neutralizer. Again, notice how my shutdown neutralizer button is flashing here. Like, it's not something that if you see like a shutdown field being fired, you have maybe 2 or maybe 3 seconds really to sort of like find that key and hold it down. So it's something that eventually you'll want to build some muscle memory about. And if you have to mess around with fire groups, you almost always will miss it. So it is something that you want a hotkey that you're able to press. And by the way, the shutdown field neutralizer you need to hold. This is a weapon that you kind of need to hold for it to work. It only protects you while you're holding it, and it only protects you while you have system capacitor not yet drained. So I know this is all a lot to take in, especially if you're new, but it is kind of the basics of how you set things up. And once things are set up, things are actually easier than I'm making them sound right now, as far as like everything is concerned. So let's take the ship out for a trial. All right. So this ship flies in PIP's configuration that typically vary between 2-4-0, like 2 in sys, 4 in engine, and 0 in weapon when you're not fighting. Switching to 0-2-4, 2 pips in engine and 4 pips in weapon when you are fighting. Now I'm waiting to kind of like exit the no fire zone, which I think I have now, before we kind of give it a little bit of a test. I'm going to stop for a moment because there are a couple of things that, again, we need to sort out before we are ready to kind of like really put this ship through a ringer of some trials. And that is, if you're going to be fighting in an anti-Xeno build, and probably the next most important thing that you want to do is you want to set up your controls properly so that you're able to fly, at least in a basic manner, in flight assist off. And I don't mean that you're going to be sort of like hooning around stations and doing canyon runs in your first week. You don't need to do that, but you need to be able to at least somewhat move your ship around and decouple your bearing vectors and where your ship is pointing from your movement vectors and where your ship is going, as that makes a humongous difference in actual combat. And the most important thing to be able to do that in a way that actually works is to fix your controls so that they work in flight assist off. And the most important thing is to have relative mouse enabled on both axes and the relative rate cranked all the way up. I also recommend the dead zone power curve to be 0 and the sensitivity to be set to whatever you can take. Generally, probably less than you originally think you can take, because like less is more as far as sensitivity. It is better to be slow but precise than to kind of swing quickly across the screen but not be able to aim and target anything. So if in doubt, err on the side of lower sensitivity if you're a mouse user. Joystick users have similar configuration with their own software in terms of like what kind of sensitivity their joysticks want, but this is really kind of at some point something that you set to your own taste and your own liking. It's possible to set a toggle to also disable relative mouse. If you find that this is annoying when you fly in Super Cruise, you can use this toggle to enable and disable relative mouse so that you use it when you're in regular space in combat, but you disable it when you're in super cruise and don't particularly care or value the relative mouse setting. So having sort of sorted out the basics of your flight assist on controls, flight assist off controls, again, for combat, you're going to be in a group. The additional thing that we generally ask people to do is we ask people to, where is that again? To turn off report crimes against me. Again, this is something that practically does nothing as far as like helping you with regards to crime and punishment in the game. And the only things that it does is it results in people getting bounties accidentally by tagging you while in the heat of combat by mistake. And that is incredibly annoying, as then that prevents them from repairing at stations and sends them off to like a prison station far away if they get destroyed. So do everybody a courtesy and turn report crimes against me off before you get going. And that's kind of about it, I think. So we're ready to kind of give the ships on trial. So we're going to deploy our hard points, turn flight assist off, and stare at something. Like generally, when we'll see an interceptor, the first thing we'll want to do is we'll want to get a scan of the interceptor. So we're going to hold down the enhanced Xeno scanner, which only works against Thargoid, so it's like not going to work here. But we're going to hold down the enhanced Xeno scanner and wait until we got a full scan. Once we get a full scan, we're ready to engage. So like in flight assist off, we kind of can boost around, and all you do is like hold down the primary button, and the gimbals will track automatically your target. The one thing that you'll want to know is when hearts get exerted and start flashing, which happens once you do enough damage to interceptors, the one thing you want to do is you want to sub-target those hearts. So like that's why you'll see also that I have a sub-target button that is flashing here on my screen that I'm showing you, as that is something that you'll need to do for your gimbals to track. See if I can find a ship and see like a sub-target. Although I think we've gotten far enough that all the ships have jumped out here. Let's just back on. Steven jumping out. Sub-targeting hearts is necessary for your gimbal weapons to track those hearts. Otherwise, if you just shoot at the center mass of the Thargoid, you're not going to be hitting, and you're not being hitting, you're not going to be destroying those hearts. I see something flashing, so maybe there is a ship here. Kind of being a bit careful about boosting at this range. There. So, as you see, once we have actually a ship scanned, using the sub-target lets you go through the modules of the ship. In the case of Thargoids, modules are hearts. You can also see on the sort of right panel in the target view all the different modules. It will show the hearts here. In the case of an interceptor, it will also tell you if one is exerted, by the way. This is an alternative way to sort of target hearts if you don't want to map a sub-target. If you don't use a sub-target. Key. So this is kind of it. The one thing I will mention is the upgrade path of this ship is pretty standard. So like right now, if you boost even at full pips, let's see how fast this ship goes. This ship boosts to a maximum like 410, 411 meters per second, which is remarkable for a combat unengineered ship of this caliber, which by the way has, what do we have in terms of integrity? We have 2,000 armor health without any kind of engineering, and with engineering this is going to go up by the way all the way up to like 6k. So this is an incredibly tanky ship with a lot of speed and good firepower. So that's what effectively makes it easy mode. It's like hits hard, goes very fast, and has a lot of tank while using gimbal weapons that kind of aim for you and don't require the sort of precision of flight assist off. Next, I think, the only thing that's left to do with regards to this ship is put on a caustic sink, which is the one thing that we didn't get. And actually, that would be the one thing that we mapped to the second fire group here. Instead of a Xenoscanner here, we would map the caustic sink launcher to fire it, because that does need to be manually fired when it fills up. So that would be sort of a small change in addition to what I just mentioned earlier. And this gives you the sort of unengineered version of the easy mode Corsair. I got sidetracked there for a moment, but I was talking about the upgrade path. The first thing, if you have any engineering whatsoever available, or any willingness to sort of do any engineering whatsoever, the first thing you should engineer is your thrusters. Because right now we are slower than Thargoid interceptors. Like, we are going to go boost, and I mentioned, like, we're going to be boosting to 410. Interceptors go 450. So the fact that we are slower than them means that, 412 actually, the fact that we are slower than them means that we can't dictate range, as in we can't actually get away from interceptors, which is dangerous and makes your life a lot harder. If you can engineer your thrusters so that at least you can break 450, which is actually not that hard, and you should be able to do like easily with just G3 engineering to thrusters, that's going to make this build single-handedly a lot better. The next thing you want to engineer is your power distributor, and then the rest of the upgrade path is more to personal taste on the way to the fully engineered build of the sort of full-fledged easy mode Corsair. So this is the unengineered version. We're going to break here. We're going to come back in a moment to show how the fully engineered version of the easy mode Corsair handles. All right, so you spent some time, invested in the build, and now you have the engineered version of the easy mode Corsair, which is slightly different from the unengineered version that we just built, since it now has two weapons. It has modified Guardian plasma chargers, and it has azimuth multi-cannons, which are essentially an upgraded version of the standard multi-cannons that we put on the ship earlier just for credits. So here we are. I'm going to have a live demonstration of how the build works in practice. Note I have adjusted my fire groups to the fact that I have two weapons, and now I have a separate dedicated fire group for scanning. As I mentioned, the first thing we'll want to do is we're going to get a scan of the interceptor. And we're fighting a Basilisk today, as it's something that will go relatively fast. And again, I don't expect beginners to sort of throw themselves at Hydra on day one. But plasma chargers you hold, they have a relatively small range, but they hit really hard. And then you open up and actually hit with both weapons. In the case of this particular weapon, we've now gotten the target, and we are sub-targeting the heart. As you can see, the heart is already down. This is, in my opinion, the best build in the game. It is not the most powerful build in the game. The most powerful build in the game is a variation of this build that uses modified shards instead of this combination of azimuth multi-cannons and plasma chargers. However, this build, in my opinion, is more fun to use and so much more comfortable than the shard version of the build. So, depending on what your definition is of best, it might be the best build in the game. In my opinion, best is not necessarily the most powerful thing, but it's the one that I want to fly more often. And this is probably the build I want to fly more often in the game, because it is the most fun and the most comfortable overall to use. And now I'm getting shot at because I wasn't paying attention at what range I'm at. It's a good way to show an example. To use a repair limpet, you actually have to de-target your target, and then the limpet will target you and repair you. Know that getting hit makes your limpet die, so don't get hit while you're repairing. Try and get some range. One thing you can do is you can actively use your plasma chargers on shields to speed the fight up, which we might do since we're again demonstrating. Pop a heatsink, get in range. Plasma chargers have very low range. They do very little damage at that range, and now they're completely out of range. So we gotta get close. Need another heatsink. But they're very powerful against shields also. And the shield is down. Oh, I sub-targeted accidentally there. So I'm going back to my main setup here. Trying to close range a bit. Sub-targeted the heart. And the heart is down. Second heart down. I use my thermal vent beam, which has been engineered with thermal vent experimental on top of a long range. Now, I wasn't cold, so I actually triggered caustic missiles, which the fun thing is you can actually shoot them down with fixed beams. It's something I actually enjoy doing quite a bit. Although at this range, it's going to take some time to kind of take it down. Boom! Now we got a little too far as we were dealing with the caustic missile. I'm also going to intentionally trigger the shutdown field on the last heart so that you can see how the shutdown field defense works using the shutdown field neutralizer. Note I have a caustic sink launcher, so I could have even let the... actually, maybe for the next heart, I'll let the caustic missiles hit me so that you can see like what happens and how you deal with it. Shield is still up, but I'm gonna speed the fight up a bit by shooting the shield down. The good thing about plasma chargers is they got ammo for ages, so you can afford to kind of use them to like speed the fight up, whereas normally you kind of wouldn't want to save and conserve your ammo. Shield down. Heart is out. And the heart is down. There's 2 hearts left. You can see it based on the 2 orange bars underneath the shield right next to the 52% number. That shows there's 2 hearts left. Now, I triggered the caustics intentionally. I'm going to go and eat it to show like how you deal with it if you get caustic on your ship. We're going to get plenty. Now, caustic damage detected. My caustic sink is full, and I agitated a swarm while I was not paying attention. I have to map a caustic sink, which for whatever reason is not mapped here. So we're going to fix that too. Where's the caustic sink launcher? Here it is. I'll map it to my second trigger here. Note it's full. You have to manually trigger it. It's gonna dump the caustic sink, and the next caustic sink is gonna absorb whatever caustic is left. There it is. And put a repelling pit on ourselves. Now the swarm is agitated, so we gotta reset the swarm, but it's gonna missile us. At least I believe I agitated it. I pay some attention here. I'm gonna go silent running to avoid some damage here since we're in range. Note how fast this engineer build is. It goes 600 meters per second with no less than 3,000 armor. Alright. What were we doing? Oh yes, we need to synthesize some heat sinks, which we're gonna do from here. Cold again. Test the swarm and see if the swarm is a missile formation or not. I thought it had flown over me. Yes, that's a missile formation. So it's going to missile me when it reaches 3 kilometers. But I am far enough away that I'm not going to be hit by those missiles. There we go. I'm moving away. And I'm going to wait until they harmlessly expire. And then I'm going to boost through the swarm to reset the state of the swarm to a non-missile formation. And it's been reset. Go back on tagging our friends. Whose shield is almost down. Put a repair limpet on myself while I'm at it. Shield is about to drop. So pop one of those newly synthesized heat sinks and engage. Exert it. And we got the heart. Last heart. So this is last heart. So I'm going to trigger the shutdown field neutralizer. I'm going to put pips in system, as that's going to make my shutdown field neutralizer last longer. Note the energy surge detected. Now I'm going to hold the SFN. Holding, holding, holding. It goes over me harmlessly. And I'm going to let go now. And that's how you defend against the shutdown field when you see the energy surge detected message. And I'm going to put my pips back to weapon. I'm going to continue this fight in a bit more of an aggressive way, since I think we've seen most of there is to say at this point. Pop my heat sink, get back in range. Use my guns here too, since like there's really no reason not to save your ammo here. Shield down. Last heart is out. And now it's about to die. And now we're going to do a bit of a Mechan thing, since we want to speed up the fight. Don't do this at home. Which is, we're going to finish this fight in style. Whoa. Or try at least. Dodged me at the last minute. I'll try again. Alright, let's try again. Second time's running. Basilisks are very fast. Oh gosh. And this is a messy end of the fight, but in the spirit of doing it quickly, let's finish it off this way. And it's down. There we go. Not exactly the way you want to fight, but like you get the gist. Also, like how this ship can handle under sort of time or speed pressure. And we are done. So this is like a sort of accelerated version of how you use the easy mode Corsair, and in its engineering capacity. The unengineered version works more or less the same. It's even simpler because you don't have the NPCs that take you into a sort of a two-weapon configuration, but instead use NPCs only. So it makes it even easier. Again, the unengineered version is really meant to be used in a group, like in the Anti-Xeno Combat Zone event that we have coming up for October 11. And that's more or less all there is to the beginner build version of the easy mode Corsair. If you're interested to learn more about Thargoids and Thargoid intercept behavior, the best video to watch and to learn from is Anti-Xeno Academy. That is also linked in the comments below. Glory to mankind. Commando Mechan, over and out.